Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Slim Cogcast. It is I, Slim Cognito, and we finna recap this new episode of the House of the Dragon. A lot happened. So here we go. Now, let's just kick things off. Also, please keep in mind that if you enjoyed this, go ahead and give it a like before we begin. And if you want to see some more and follow the rest of the episodes for the rest of the season, then go ahead and subscribe. It'll help me a lot. And as you can see, I could use it. So, Episode 6, titled The Princess and the Queen, opens up with Rhaenyra giving birth to a baby boy. A healthy baby boy. And of course, her being still the princess, the queen decides to see the baby immediately after birth. So she decides to walk up the stairs and go and see her herself right after giving birth. And this is like going upstairs, around the corner, down a hallway, etc., while in pain, and of course her husband accompanies her. Now, in her current state of things, of course, Rhaenyra, as we've been seeing throughout the episode, has shown that she's grown now. This is a time jump of an uncertain amount of years, but she's an adult at this point. As well as her husband, who they've wed at the end of the previous episode. Now, Rhaenyra, the thing about her is, she hasn't changed, like, at all. She's still intelligent but nefarious and very manipulative. She even has a seat on the council with others and right next to her father, who is still around, King Viserys. Now, once the baby, as soon as the umbilical cord was cut and she had to go up the stairs to walk before she could, get away, I gotta bring some attention to the moment where she had to get rid of the afterbirth. Like they put the sound effects in there, and this woman acted like she acted so well. The way she put this role on is magnificent. I gotta give her credit. Like, it makes me literally hate the character so much how well she plays the part. But of course, Sir Lannis is still her husband, but he's older now, much more handsome, and he decided to shave the sides of his head and let the dreads hang. It's nice. I love it. So here they are, everyone's greeting the princess and the new lord or the future heir, etc. But here's the thing, and they're alluding to, is that they're in a sexless marriage and he is not attracted to her, obviously, because of what we know from the previous episode. But also, she's still giving birth. So the babies that she's birthing, she's still sleeping with knights. Like, she's still sleeping around with knights and ruining their lives just so she can have a baby. So here we are, and we move forward. Of course, they go to greet people who come and meet them, Miss Cadwell and whatnot. Lord Cadwell, excuse me. And then we get the first chance to see the queen after her time jump. And of course, she's more of an adult herself, because that's how time works, duh. But anyway, now, here she is. She says she wants to see the baby. And of course, you can tell that they both don't get along, because now that she knows who she is and how she is. But it's not, can you really blame her, though? And in this moment, the King Viserys comes in and he holds the baby. And he's all proud about his new grandson, happy, so he's going to make a fine knight. He's very sturdy and whatnot. But here's the thing, and I got to highlight this, okay? But Sir Lannis decides to name the baby without discussing it with her first, and he chooses the name Joffrey. And everyone else likes the name. There's no question about it, no argument. Later on, she confronts him about it and says, "Oh, so you would name our child without my counsel?" He was like, "Yep," in much less words. But yeah, he didn't care, and can't really blame him. They don't really get along, and you can see that later on as well. But now here he is holding the baby. King Viserys, by the way, is losing all his hair. He looks way worse than before, and it's a surprise that he got to such an old age. Now, of course, outside of the quarters where they were speaking with the queen, you don't get to see it. But a certain somebody from her past decides to turn his back and not even take a look at her. And they don't even notice it. I'm going to post it on Twitter to see if anybody noticed. I don't think anybody noticed. But he turns back and he looks and he says, "Ooh." And she's leaving a trail of blood all over the castle everywhere she goes. And of course, now there are other children in the mix. 2 other young boys birthed by her, and I think there's a third. Yeah, there's 3 boys. 2 of them with brunette hair and 1 with blonde hair like herself. And they seem to be about the age of 10 and 6, I guess you could say. While the other, it's hard to say, somewhere in the middle, maybe about 8 years old. And each of them have a dragon except for the 8-year-old, the one with the same hair as the mother. Now, one of the knights that accompanied them after he dropped her off and gave the baby back to her, he let the knight hold it. This knight's name was, let me double check because he wasn't really a character up until now. Sir Harwin. So Sir Harwin, this guy Sir Harwin, long curly locks of hair, beautiful brunette color, and he is a knight. Seems to be one of the honorary top ranking guards. And he decides to hold the baby, right? And he's looking at it so fondly while Sir Lannis is getting the other 2 kids out of the door or away from them so they could speak. Of course, he looks and he knows. So this right here is already obvious at this point. But yes, the princess has been screwing Sir Harwin and getting babies out of him. And I think this is his third. Now, of course, there have been certain rumblings and things in the castle, but there was even a moment where a person leaned in and they said, "Don't worry, sire. One day you will have a babe that looks just like you." And I'm like, was that something to be like nice to consider, or are they throwing shade? Like, what is this? Like, are you being judgmental? But anywho's, the next scene cuts to a young dragon being trained for one of the sons of the princess and Sir Harwin. And of course the kids don't know who their real father is. They think that Sir Lannis is. And the dragon, of course, is being tamed by the young boy. And the boy is being taught to speak the tongue of the dragon so that it may give it orders. And once it keep giving it orders, it would only obey that one person. Now, this whole scene is interesting because okay, the child with the blonde hair, the middle child that was basically considered like the bastard child, they treat him like the black sheep, and this child does not have a dragon of their own, but they decided to make fun of him and you know, dress up a pig like a dragon with some crude, you know, sticks and leaves and say, "We've got you a dragon of your very own," and you know, they thought it was funny and it was a joke or whatever. But what they failed to realize was these kids that they're joking on, like, they are the heir to the throne, and they come from a separate bloodline than your own. So just because y'all look alike doesn't mean that that's not a threat, and you keep disrespecting them, then they could easily turn to their mom and say, "Yeah, cut off all your nieces and nephews, kill them." Like, you know. And it took the queen to tell the eldest son that, because he's such an idiot. He's a threat to the kingshood of her children, Princess Rhaenyra's children. So the eldest child, being not being a Targaryen primarily, he is like resting on his laurels, and he's full of hubris, and he think he's big shit, you know, and he doesn't have to do anything or say anything outside of respect for any about all that. And it's crazy that that's a fact, because he's not seeing how much potentially he needs to rectify this. Like, he needs to make sure that he has good graces with these siblings of his. But, you know, he's so childish. I mean, so childish to the point where in the next opening scene where he's introduced and the queen is telling him this, the idiot is standing in the windowsill jerking it, you know? And even more so, there was even a scene before we got there. I need to find out what the name of that child is. But the Targaryen, the Princess Rhaenyra's son, basically tried to sneak down and take a look at the other dragons, but scared himself and ran away when the dragon breathed fire. I guess he was trying to see if he could command it or do something, but once the dragon saw him, it started breathing fire at him, and he just ran, which you can't really blame him. It's understandable. Now, in this next scene, you're gonna see the queen decides to approach King Viserys and tell him that you need to pay attention to how the kids treat one another, because it could cause a divide in the future when it comes to the houses and fighting for the throne. And he just was like, look, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm better at thinking about this, and I don't want to hear about it anymore. And I don't like these accusations that you're pushing around. So he's choosing a willful blindness to this. And the ugliest thing about it is, right after the queen left, she went to consult Sir Christian, the knight who was protecting the room where the baby was taken to in the beginning. And then he turned his back as Rhaenyra left in order to not look at her and only see the trail of blood on the way out. So he's consulting Sir Christian, and she's like, I know I'm not crazy. Like, I need a second opinion. Like, do you really think that I'm, like, losing my mind here? Blah, 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 blah. And Sir Christian's like, okay, listen. She's, you know what I'm saying, doing everything she can to abuse her power and turning things to her, you know, manipulation and whatnot. Like, what do you think? Like, duh, you know this. And then he responds, the Princess Rhaenyra is brazen and relentless, a spider who stings and sucks her prey dry, a spoiled cunt. And she just stopped walking, and he's like, oops. And he's like, that was beneath me, Your Grace, I apologize. But the thing is, she didn't correct him because he's right. But she's still ignorant because she's like, in the end, honor and decency will prevail. And she wants to make sure that he's not willing to step down to that level in order to get even. So, yes, that was important to me because I feel like the queen is like a little ignorant in the doings and the games that Rhaenyra is playing. Still, she's just a little bit too innocent. And that's when she goes to speak to her son and tries to get him to wise up. Now, this next scene, which was beautifully done, CG wise and well acted, oh, so good. These dragons, they were on a dragon ride, but it was Daemon and what was it, Talia? Taylor? Turns out Daemon ended up marrying and having children with Corlys's daughter, excuse me. Corlys's daughter. Very beautiful, what was her name? I forget. But at the time, she's with child, and they're riding dragons together, having fun and doing things and being cute, actually. Like, he let her win and shit, you know, they was actually being adorable. And he got a dope-ass dragon, too. It's, like, red with these, like, you know, these wings on his hind legs. It's so good. But anyway, after they have their fun, they come down, they have dinner, they have a toast, and apparently, and this is aside for the first time, this is what's very important to me, Daemon is actually sitting with the children and teaching them how to speak the dragon tongue, and he's actually being caring and considerate and compassionate, and it's strange. Man. Okay, I'm gonna say it. I didn't want to say it, but I'm gonna say it. But God damn, boy, a black woman sure did fix him. So anyway, they get into a little discussion about Valyria and everything, and he's all, you know, caring about, you know, the baby that's coming, and she's got her worries, and she's putting it on him, and he's doing what he can to deal with it. And she's saying that she doesn't want to die by some countryman or whatnot. She would rather die by the fire of a dragon, the dragons of her people, etc. And he just didn't consider it because, of course, any man in love don't want to hear that shit. Not even going to consider it, you know what I mean? And he just moves on. So in the very next scene, you get to see all of the children of Rhaenyra going out to learn how to spar. And Sir Christian is their instructor. So Christian, with his hair cut shorter now, instructing them as best as possible on how to be better at the blade, of course. But we have a problem here. The hubris of the eldest is he thinks that he's the biggest badass. His name is Aegon, by the way. So Aegon thinks that he's the best swordsman out there. And Christian says, all right, since you want to beat up on the little shorter kids, the younger kids, let's see if you can fight me. And of course, they start to spar. Aegon loses. And it was a 2v1. He said you can have your brother join in as well. Now, right now, of course, they're being embarrassed very badly. And you won't believe who decides to put in his 2 cents and just starts to say something, right? What was his name again? Hold up. See, I'm going to look up. All right, hold up. Okay, his name is Hardwin. His name is Hardwin. Hardwin. Okay. Now, of course, Hardwin decides to speak up while the kids are getting, wrecked, I guess you could say. And the kids, it's kind of hilarious. It's like they're doing what they can, and he told them to fight one another. He told Aegon to fight against one of Hardwin's eldest sons by Rhaenyra, and Aegon is easily beating him because he's taller. And then they both go to the corner, and he says, hey, you need to use your speed because you're smaller than him. And he's like, you're taller than him. Use that advantage. And then they're just going at it. And of course, the younger kid is just losing. And Sir Kristen's telling him, hey, keep going. Fight, stay on the attack. And of course, Sir Harwin, steps in and stops him from fighting. And he's like, why are you acting like this? This isn't right. This is not how you teach him. And then Sir Kristen's like, oh, okay, most men wouldn't care about that. You reacting like somebody would react if they would see a cousin or a brother get hit, or maybe your son. And Harwin just starts beating the shit out of him. Like, the same way he did Sir Lannis's boyfriend in the previous episode. So he's out there just, taking it. He's like, huh, that was hilarious. And he spits the blood out of his mouth, So at this point, Sir Kristen is like just really having a bowl of laughs because this heifer may have broken his heart, but she got kids by these other idiots. So anyway, then you got, Rhaenyra is going through the corridors, and she overhears an entire conversation between Hardwin and his father. They're saying, you're an idiot, boy. Everybody knows that those kids are yours. You've been laying with the princess. All the kids got brown hair. You're stupid. Why are you doing this? You're shaming us, and you could bring nothing but death to me, you, your whole family, and the king's guard. You're an idiot. And she's up in there like, and I guess that's that usual face that you get from Rhaenyra. It just means it's time for me to plot a way to save myself because I fucked up. So anyway, now she reports back to the wet nurse, and she puts a nice wet towel on her stomach so that she may heal. On her chest because her breasts were swelling from the milk. And in stumbles a loud, drunken Sir Lannis, and he is accompanied with a male friend who looks a bit flamboyant, and that was obvious. And he stumbles in. He's just like, "Ooh, wars are coming on the footsteps and stepfoots or whatever." And they're getting ready their ships and things. You won't believe it. And he was like, "I saw some sapphires that were huge." And he's like, "Yeah, I needed some adventure, liven my blood again." And as he telling her stuff and things like that, she just, shrugs it off and not really paying attention. But in her eyes, you can see that she look like she's getting ready to cry or whatever. She's like, "What's wrong with you? Like, there are rumors all around here about us." And he's just looking at it like, insinuations, you say. Like, and she all mad and shit and raising her voice and hollering at him. And he's like, "I'm a knight and a warrior, and I played my part. Like, I did everything I was supposed to do for 10 years. And then he's like, you owe me." And then she's like, "I don't owe you nothing for 10 years. And you had the finest horses and drinks and agreement, and have not bludgeoned you, but..." And I'm like, woman, he was already a royalty before you came along. He was like, "What's wrong with you? You see this big storm brewing. This is of your making. If you so wise of a sailor, then you should leave before the storm starts." And I was like, "Oh, look at him being wise and shit." So, bruh. Here we go. Now, I feel like this whole situation between them two, I just want to share my opinion about that. That relationship was supposed to be an agreement and nothing more, but Rhaenyra's trying to leverage him to get more out of him when he does not owe her a single thing. He kept up to his part. He raised the children. He was around. He played along. He played daddy and played house. She was like, "You didn't do enough." And we ain't gonna go into too much detail, but we know that's bullshit. And this boy's whole life was hijacked, and he lost his boyfriend because of her behavior. So, but we can say it's plenty of people's fault. His boyfriend didn't have to go and tell it. But, hey, that accountability getting dodged, though. So anyway, they are, basically at this point, you have, okay, Daemon's wife is now speaking to one of her daughters who has a dragon egg of her own, and she's worried about getting the egg to hatch and things like that. And, you know, she's worried about it not hatching. But she said, don't worry. Mine was a late hatcher too, and now he's like the biggest dragon in the world, so don't worry. And she even brought up the fact that Daemon kind of ignores her, you know. It's these things that can't be hidden that a lot of people, they overlook it. When you're a human, your subconscious is very powerful. If it's a child that is not yours, it's going to show, because there's not going to be the same care, the same passion, the same attention. If the child is not yours, you're not going to give them the same amount of love. And the children can see that. Everyone can see that. When these children are yours, you're going to be the one who's more attentive, more caring to the mother, etc. And that's where it's obvious. And all the other people in the kingdom are like, oh, look at how they acted. Oh, that might not be his child. Good. You know, streets get to talking. And that's exactly how it goes. So, Daemon and his wife is now talking to one another. And she's mentioning how she misses her brother because she's there living with him. And he is in denial about how he doesn't miss his home. But he says he doesn't miss it. And she's like, there's no way that you don't. And she's wondering what's wrong with him because he's just reading the same books about the same legacies that he claimed doesn't matter and all this other stuff. Now, the next scene after she quells Daemon's worries and they basically just agree to not lose it. Right here, the next scene is the council discussing all political matters that are happening under the Iron Throne's rule, and you have Rhaenyra a seat on the council. Rhaenyra is basically just sowing seeds of discourse and saying, well, it seems to be that, but maybe they're up to something else and they're having these ulterior motives. And of course they would say that because they're desperate or etc. And nobody else is directly agreeing. They're just, you know, silently letting it go by. And you can tell that they don't agree, but they're silently just excusing it because they know that she's son of Lord Varys, and Lord Varys is just letting her get away with everything because he's so, you know, just used to spoiling her and letting her always get her way. And here she is. She can tell that that the queen does not get along with her, and she knows that the queen knows her better than everybody else there. So she decides to strike first and apologize to her. And I'm like, ew, what a disgusting human being. When you know that you're in the wrong and you know that you like got all these ulterior motives and these snake moves. And she's like, I apologize if we don't get along, and I offer that one of my children be married to one of yours in the house of Targaryen in order to make sure that, you know, the future of the houses can stay strong, etc. And of course she used that moment where she was lactating in order to draw attention to that and end the conversation, of course, which is smart. Now the queen is trying to tell the king that this is not a good proposal, but the king's like, this is such a good proposal, join the families together. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And the only way it'll happen is if I'm cold in my grave. And he's like, Alicent, please, Alicent, please. But of course, you know, he chooses to be blind to his daughter. Now, here she is, you know, taking care of him, covering him with a blanket and whatnot. And he's just like, I don't need it, da 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 da. And she's still doing it, and all this. And then as soon as Lord Lana pulls up the hand of the king, he goes, it's like she's always pestering me, blah blah blah, you know, complaining about her caring for him when he's the one being ignorant. Now, here's the thing. Now the hand shows up, and of course the hand is the father of Sir Hardwyn, and he's trying to let him know that there's some nefarious things going on in your kingdom that I cannot take part of, and I wish to leave and take my son with me because he's my heir. We need to take him back to the kingdom so he can learn his new duties and things like that. He's like, no, you've served me for 10 years. You've done great by me. Like, I will not allow it. You will continue to be the hand. He's like, well, I still need to go. I can't tell you what's going on here. I was like, well, won't you tell me? He said, I can't. And the queen steps up. She said, yes, please, in plain English so we can't misunderstand it. And he's like, I can't tell you. So he leaves, and then the king sits down in frustration. He's like, well, aren't you going to help me? And she walks out the room. So, of course, the queen decides to sit down and have a meal and start talking to what was his name? The guy who snitched and told her that the queen was out there, you know what I'm saying, letting that thing fly. And he's basically just giving her a good, honest conversation about everything that's going on. So the name of the guy that she's speaking to, the queen is speaking to, Larry Strong, and he was just letting her know that, okay, well, he can't be unbiased and give advice to the king as the hand if he is conflicted by the fact that his children and grandchildren are of the crown. And so at that moment, things got a little complicated, but the queen just assured that it doesn't matter. I'll be able to influence him no matter what. Maybe I could be able to do something. And in that moment, everything just kind of washes over. But he goes down to a prison and he says, look at these group of heroes that I have before me. A deviant, a murderer, etc., you know, and a betrayer to the crown. And he's like, what would you have? What do you want from us? It's like, well, you've been sentenced to be hung, but I can use a little favor from you. And at the very next scene, they decide to just cut the tongue out of one of the men. Who knows why or where this is going, but we will see, I suppose. And in the next scene, we have... Okay, I'm going to find her name this time. I'm not going to just stumble it this time, I promise. Lena. So Lady Lena Valorian is Daemon's wife, who was married to Daemon, and they're getting ready to conceive a child. And she's doing everything she can to have the baby, but the baby just would not come out, and they don't know what's wrong, what's going on, or nothing. So she's over there like distraught in pain, and Daemon's up there like don't know what to do or what's happening or what. And he's just like, oh, well, what's happening? He's like, well, sir, I've gone to the limits of my talents. I can't birth the baby. The only other way that we could do it is if we cut her open and take the baby out, but there's no guarantee that the baby will survive, and there's no guarantee that she will. And at that moment, after he asks, will she survive? Because Daemon himself asked, will she survive? And he said, no, sire. And he just left it at that. But I don't think Daemon ordered them to do it. I think he just said, no, we won't do it. And he didn't want to lose her. Daemon actually loved this girl. It's crazy, right? So at the very next scene, you see her walking out onto the shores to go speak to her dragon. And I'm thinking it's just going to be a regular conversation to the dragon. But as she walks out, deathly pregnant and cannot give birth still, and in all kinds of pain, she can't even stand up. And she said over and over, Dracarys, Dracarys, Dracarys. And for those who have watched Game of Thrones and have watched the show up to this point, you know that Dracarys is the command for them to blow fire. And the dragon did not obey the first 5 times she said it. And he just was like, I don't really want to. But the dragon said, okay. And he set her aflame right there. And she kills herself with her own dragon. And goes down rather nobly. I guess you could say it's tragic though. It's kind of sad. I don't like it, but it happened. And at the very next scene, you see Miss Rhaenyra Targaryen sitting there with all of her bastard children happily as a mother with no issues, as she continues to manipulate, lie, and cheat her way through everything. And Sir Hardwin is doing his best to tell them goodbye. We're leaving. And she's just acting like she doesn't care, and she's all nonchalant. Her eldest son runs out after his father leaves. And unbeknownst to him, he looks and he just puts 2 and 2 together. He said, is Harwin Strong my father? Am I a bastard? And she's just like, you're a Targaryen, is all that matters. And tries to kiss him on the head and just let it go. And that little boy is still mad. And now she up there, ooh, no, my consequences. So, anywho's. Rhaenyra goes out to the courtyard where the guys are practicing swords, and she speaks to Celaena and says that we're getting ready to leave right now. They made a spectacle and they're talking about me in the corridors. And he like, so? Okay, so we're going to Dragonstone? And he's like, she said, yeah, we should have left a long time ago. And he's like, well, didn't you say that if you left, then the queen would just turn your father against you? And then she was all like, no. Just get the best sword that we got, bring him with you, and we need to leave before the storm comes, blah, blah, blah. You know, the thing that he said earlier. So he agreed, and they're leaving. Now, in the next scene, you see that all of the Hardwin's men are leaving along with his father, and they're headed to their own keep, their own castle, while they're being followed by a group of people who have this weird bug-like brooch, I guess you could say, on their person. And that same bug was similar to a bug that was on the cane of Larys Strong. So, oh shit, yeah, Larys is one of the children of one of Harder's siblings. Okay, but yeah, Larys had a cane with that same bug on it, and it's strange. It's like, who are they with? Who are they, and why are they following them? Of course. And in the very next scene, you see the Hand of the King in the Strong Kingdom, and he's coughing while he's asleep because there's smoke coming up and billowing up around him. And he gets up and he notices that the smoke is building up way too much. And there's a fire in the room with Harwin. So Harwin is burning alive, and there's no way for him to get to him. He does everything he can to try to break down the door, and he couldn't. So Harwin is now presumed dead. Harwin has been taken out of the equation now as the bastard father of Rhaenyra's children. The bastard father, I guess you could say, yeah, the bastard of whatever, the father of her children. So once again, she's not exactly absolved, but someone's covering up and patching up the mistakes of her past. And the entire kingdom was burned down. People dead. This is the catalyst for a war brewing. And all the people that are there now missing, and Daemon is doing his best to tell the children, his stepchildren, that their mother has committed suicide via her own dragon, and she is no longer with them. And of course they're crying, they're shedding tears. So now you have Larys speaking to the queen once again, and he's saying that it's best to make your way through life without problems. And he was like, wait, are they dead? And he was like, you've heard the stories of Harrenhal. It was built in hubris and a monument to his own greatness, blood mixed into the mortar. It is said it is a cursed place, that it passes judgment on all who pass beneath its gates. And basically he's saying that these people are not good people. They don't deserve any like sympathy or any like, you know, they deserve whatever they had coming to them, is what he's saying in the most words. And he said she's like, you passed judgment. And he's like, well, it was something that the queen wanted. It was one of your wishes. And he's a servant of the realm, so he strived to fulfill it. And she was just like, I assume that you will let your father know. And she's like, I didn't wish for this. And he's like, I feel certain that you will reward me when the time is right. So basically, he's being an extension of necessity for her and her naivete and innocence. Because that kingdom existing and being alive is going to not only threaten her queenhood, but also cause a war in the future that would make the bloodline of the Targaryens even weaker. So yeah. And that's everything for this episode. I enjoyed that fully. And my final thoughts on it is that everything that's going about, this is supposedly the story of the Mad King and why he went mad in his final days. Well, it's showing. And what it's showing is that all of the things that was built by his family and bloodline as king of the 9 realms, the 7 realms, however many of them realms of an odd number, it's all being torn down by poor decisions made by Rhaenyra, and even poorer decisions by the king's desperate state of mind. With his health weighing over him, he's willing to take any direction as long as it's moving forward. And it's really tearing up a lot of things. So, the health of the kingdom is suffering because of her choices. And he excommunicated the one person that was able to really bring about more strength to the kingdom, and that was Daemon. I hate to say it. Daemon's not a good person at all. He's terrible. He's a piece of trash. But damn, if he's not a complicated character, like it's so much. And can you truly blame these people for being that way when there's so many underhanded evil things done in order to ensure power? You know, just pimping out their daughters to have children and forcing people to get married to certain people and all this type of things. Like, you can't really blame him. Especially when humans are known to do the dumbest things whenever they're denied to be able to do the things that persist in their folly and be able to follow in their heart and emotions. So, yeah, all of this makes perfect sense. And does that mean that I think Daemon's a good character or a good person? Not at all. But that also means that I am a firm believer that Rhaenyra is a terrible person all around. But they're both made from the same injustices, which is she wanted to live life the way she wanted and use her body the way she wanted. And Daemon was the same way. he didn't want to be pigeonholed into the decisions of the hierarchies and all these other things going on. He just wanted to do and feel how he wanted to do and feel. But I have to defend Daemon because I'm sure that people will automatically defend Rhaenyra and try to paint her as a hero when she's clearly the villain. And they're probably going to try to villainize Daemon. So, oh well. You know what? I'm riding for Daemon. Fuck it. Except for that one part where he tried to, like, you know what I'm saying, fool around with Rhaenyra. I don't vibe with that. But everything else, I ain't mad at him. Anyways, jokes aside, I'm not picking no side. They're all characters. We just enjoying the TV show. But remember that if you also have something that I might have missed, go ahead and leave a comment and see if you could share in that. And let me know. And also, yeah, whatever it may be. Love, peace, and hair grease. Hug your nephew and love your niece. And always remember the channel motto is intentions are the most important. Actions nothing but loud and words don't mean a damn thing. Y'all take care of yourselves. And peace.